By its very nature, art is often provocative, but sometimes does it go too far? That's the argument from animal rights activists this week, who through protests and petitions have succeeded in getting one museum to withdraw 3 art pieces before its exhibition even opens. Miranda Addy has more.
Is it ever okay for living beings to suffer in the name of art? That's the current dilemma surrounding the Guggenheim Museum in New York and its exhibition, Art in China After 1989, Theatre of the World. The show's due to open next week, but now it's going to be opening at -3 of its core artworks. This footage is from a video called Dogs That Cannot Touch Each Other. Filmed in 2003, it shows 2 pairs of pit bulls on treadmills, restrained by harnesses. And then there's Theatre of the World. It's an installation featuring hundreds of live insects and reptiles, which will devour each other over the course of the show. Animal abuse or an artistic statement? Can they ever go hand in hand, or should there be a limit to the boundaries of art? The Guggenheims defended the works, saying they seek to critique systems of power and control. But animal rights activists protested against the museum, accusing it of cruelty. And a petition condemning the exhibition quickly amassed more than 500,000 signatures. Yet, this can't be the first time this has happened. Absolutely not. In 2004, Belgian artist Willem Delvoye was criticised for tattooing pigs for a project called Art Farm. And then there's Damien Hirst, known for preserving dead animals in formaldehyde. In 2012, he came under fire for causing the death of 9,000 butterflies for an exhibition at London's Tate Modern. Every time an exhibition of this kind takes place, animal rights protesters take up the cause. But for a museum as well known as the Guggenheim to actually withdraw works is rare. In a statement, the Guggenheim said works were being removed out of concern for the safety of its staff, visitors, and participating artists. But the museum added, freedom of expression has always been and will remain a paramount value. So we have to ask, how do we define the line between freedom of expression and animal cruelty?
To further discuss this, I have artist Elmas Deniz with me here today in the studio. Welcome, Elmas. How do we define the outline between the freedom of expression and using animals in artistic works?
Well, actually, it's a kind of artists always come to this point. There are some subjects that, or like in this case, animals, that when you use them in your work, then at some point it's not a freedom of expression anymore. It is the using the animals, basically. But also, there is also a little danger here. Then also artistic freedom gets affected by this reality at some point. So I think in general, the general tendency in the art world is people are much more careful about this than before. Because of the environmental changes and everything. So I think people are much more focusing on that.
How acceptable do you think, to what extent do you think it's acceptable to use animals in art? Because after one stage it becomes, you know, abusing them and making them suffer. So where do you think you can draw the line?
Well, a lot of artists would say different things, but for me it's unacceptable. Even for me it's like a live plant, using it would be unacceptable at some, I mean, there are different limits for different people, for sure. But I think everything started with, things were much more acceptable 10 years ago, maybe a little bit back then. For instance, this Damien Hirst, it's like worldwide famous animals that he, like dead animals that sliced in pieces. For me, it was unacceptable back then, still. So, especially using live animals for your work purpose, it's, I think, unacceptable.
And unacceptable it is, especially what was really striking to me was seeing those dogs the video of them being played, it was just, it kind of strikes to you as abusing the animal a bit. They were very thirsty, they seemed tired out, being strained with metal ropes. I want to move on to talking about how much the removal of the controversial works from the Guggenheim Museum is going to affect them, because they did move 3 certain works. What do you think would happen to them after this stage? Because it seemed like a big deal.
Yeah, but, yeah, maybe I'm repeating myself with this kind of, how you say, people start to focus on what is going on with the animals. It's because of the people are much more careful about this than before. For instance, like veganism, like people are becoming vegan and vegetarian more than before. And I think it's the entire world is because people, they believe that they can rule over the nature. But at some point, everything that now we face with the reality that actually we did create big mess. So this is the human-made kind of damage to the nature. So people want to prevent those things now. Before, no one was interested in, basically, especially the show with the reptiles. It's like a zoo show. Like, you wouldn't remove this. But it's 500,000 people, they signed the petition, and then, as you said, these dogs are kind of disturbing. So I think it's maybe in 5 years, it would be impossible to use a live animal in your work, I think.
Well, Ingrid Newkirk, which is the president of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, criticized the museum, saying that these animals experience every emotion that you and I and our beloved dogs and cats do. So she kind of summed it up for us, saying that, you know, you can't just treat animals however you'd like. You treat an animal like how you treat a human being, because they feel the same things.
All right.
So you're an artist yourself, and your work focuses on the relationship between animals and human beings as well. And you have an exhibit book called Made of Elephant Dung. Tell me more about that.
Actually, I've been in Sri Lanka last week, a few weeks ago, and then I produced the book there. And it's about like a, including text about my relation with the street dogs in Istanbul. So there are like little paragraphs about I'm hugging the dogs on the street. And the half of the book is an artist book, so it's about the plants that traveling between countries. And mainly my approach is in general in my artwork. Then I'm interested in how we our perception of nature and how we create relation with the other living sentient beings. And I don't use specifically animals in my work. For instance, this one was made of elephant dung, a paper, and it's for protecting those animals, because elephants are usually killed for their teeth. So this is creating a kind of economic thing. Making paper out of their dung is a kind of helping them also.
Yeah. So you're working green. You're using animals in a positive way in your work.
In a conceptual way. You can still say a lot about animals and then those ideas, but in a conceptual way. Like in my video work called Humanness. There is something, I'm trying to say something with the saying to a human being that you are not a bird.
Yes.
Basically.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. It was a pleasure having you on our show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.